Welcome, Starfinders. My name is Cody. This is Taking20, a channel about all things role-playing games. Today, I'm going to cover some of the Starfinder Basics and give you guys an overall introduction to the game. I'm going to cover some of the new mechanics like stamina and resolve. I'm going to touch a bit on themes, and I'm even going to talk about some of my favorite changes and what to expect when coming from either Dungeons & Dragons 5e or Pathfinder. So, I hope you guys are ready. Let's get started. So what exactly is Starfinder and what makes it so appealing? Well, Starfinder is a science fantasy game, not purely a science fiction game. And it's set thousands of years in the future of Golarion, the fantasy setting for Pathfinder. Gods exist, magic exists, and technology is booming. And to use the words of Starfinder's creative director himself, James Sutter, it's a game filled with space wizards and laser ninjas. And to answer the question I have seen asked about 10,000 times, no, it is not just a reskinned Pathfinder in space. In my opinion, it's a successor to Pathfinder with some significant changes to how the math works and a lot of streamlining done to things that needed attention in Pathfinder, like feats and base attack bonus, for example. And it's executed in a way that provides a lot of depth to the game, something that I am personally finding more and more refreshing after playing Dungeons & Dragons 5e for the past few years, which of course is a much more simple game by design. Okay, so before I jump in and talk a little bit more about the setting, I want to give a big thank you to my sponsor here for this video, Miniature Market. I personally have been shopping at Miniature Market since I discovered them back in 2015 because their prices are killer and they carry pretty much everything for gamers. So whether you're looking for board games, trading card games, tabletop miniatures, they've got you covered. And if you're looking for some recommendations, I always suggest Pandemic, one of my favorite games, and I have a new one that I discovered at Gen Con called Boss Monster, which is a ton of fun. And of course, if you guys want to snag some serious discounts on Starfinder's full lineup, be sure to check out the link down in the description below. It'll take you guys right to everything Starfinder, and it'll let Miniature Market know that I sent you over. So whatever you're into, Miniature Market is the place for all of your gaming needs. Okay guys, so let's talk about the setting for Starfinder. Starfinder takes place in Golarion's solar system several thousands of years in the future. But the reason we don't know exactly how far in the future it is because of a little thing called the Gap. The Gap is a historical cataclysm. 317 years ago, people and species from all across the known universe suddenly awoke with no memory of their history. Photographs became blurred. Books detailing their past became garbled or even contradicted itself. Entire histories of nations were lost in an instant. And Golarion was missing, with a small space station about 5 miles in diameter floating in its orbit. When asked about what happened, the gods would only reply that Golarion still exists, as do the descendants of the people when it vanished, safe in seclusion, unreachable by magic or science. So while people knew who they were, they lost everything else. People awoke knowing their spouse and children, but not how they met or when they had them. This sudden loss of self caused some societies to completely collapse in famine and despair, while others rose up and plunged forward. But then, just 3 years later, a new god entered the scene with the Signal. Simultaneously, beings from all across the material plane received visions and dreams of a blueprint to build the very first drift engine. This new god called itself Triune and was a mechanical god that had formed from 3 lesser deities. Triune showed these many races and people a way to create a cheap interstellar engine that would allow them to travel to solar systems and worlds previously unreachable by accessing the drift. But there is a small catch. Every time someone accesses the drift, a small part of another plane of existence is torn free and left to float in the drift for all eternity. And the bigger the jump, the bigger the piece that's torn off. As you can imagine, just 3 centuries later, this leaves us with a very open and full of possibility setting to play in and explore. I really like the way that Paizo handled bringing Pathfinder's setting forward without making any events, stories, or even future releases for it irrelevant. I also like the way that Starfinder is set up to encourage exploration of these new and undiscovered worlds. I think that it lends well to giving game masters the room and space to operate and the ability to really get creative in customizing their worlds and individual campaigns. Okay, so let's jump into the crunch and talk about some of the biggest changes coming over from Pathfinder. First off, we have a completely new system for handling hit points, taking damage, and dying. The way the hit points works is that at level 1, you receive a small pool of hit points based on your race. These range from just 2 for the Ysoki all the way to 6 for the Vesk and the Shirin. Then you receive additional hit points at level 1 based on your class. These are added together to give you your hit point total and are not affected by your Constitution modifier. In addition, you also receive a pool of stamina points based on your class plus your Constitution modifier. So for example, a Ysoki mechanic with a Constitution modifier of +1 would start with 8 hit points, 2 from Ysoki and 6 from mechanic. And it would get 7 stamina points, 6 from mechanic and 1 from their Constitution modifier. Whenever you level up, you gain the hit points for your class, but not your race. So for the mechanic, 6. And you get stamina points for your class plus your Constitution modifier. So another 7 stamina points. 6 from the mechanic, and again, +1 for that Constitution modifier. Whenever you take damage, the damage is applied first to your stamina points and then your hit points. Stamina is fairly easy to recover with resolve points, which I'll cover here in just a moment. And taking actual damage to your hit points is a little tougher to bounce back from. In short, stamina is sort of like getting punched in the face. You can probably shake off a few punches and might even be able to bounce back from it pretty quickly. But if you continue to get beat on, you could come away with some more serious injuries that require a much longer period of time to heal. Okay, so how do we recover stamina? Well, by spending a resolve point during a 10-minute rest. Resolve points are another new mechanic from the jump from Pathfinder. Resolve points, in essence, do 2 things. The first is that they help you recover stamina points, as I just mentioned. The second is that they are often used to power a unique class ability, like envoy improvisations or mechanic tricks. The amount of resolve points you have available to you is based on your character's level and their class's key ability score modifier. This is something that might be hit or miss for a few folks, but most people are probably going to build their class with a high score in that chosen stat anyways. For example, Technomancer's key ability score is Intelligence, which just so happens to be what they need to cast spells. So it's really not as limiting as it may seem on the surface. However, I will add that because of this new mechanic, the emphasis in Starfinder to have races or magic items that synergize with your chosen class's key ability score is perhaps a bit more than you might find in either Pathfinder or Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Also, before I forget, you can also spend resolve points to try and stabilize when you are knocked unconscious or dying. And while we're on the topic, death and dying is another mechanic that has seen a lot of changes coming over from Pathfinder. It's sort of a hybrid between 5e and Pathfinder and really a whole new system altogether. The biggest change is that you no longer fall below 0, which I'm not sure how I feel about, but for now, I guess I'll reserve my judgments. I'm not going to cover dying in depth here. You'll probably dive into this as it comes up in your games. Okay, so let's shift over to Armor Class, another mechanic that saw some serious changes from Pathfinder. To start off with, we now have 2 ACs, Kinetic Armor Class and Energy Armor Class. And really, these are a lot more simple than they sound. Energy Armor Class is used when somebody attacks you with a source of energy, like a laser gun. And Kinetic Armor Class is used when you are attacked with something physical, like bullets. Each set of armor in the game will list their bonuses to both EAC and KAC, and it really is fairly simple to track in game. Also, there are no longer size bonuses to AC for small or tiny creatures to keep things easy to calculate. I spent about half an hour searching the core rulebook for the size bonuses when creating my Ysoki mechanic for the Starfinder premiere before I finally just messaged O and Casey Stevens for confirmation. So let me just save you the time. It was removed. Themes are another new mechanic for Starfinder in the jump from Pathfinder, and it appears that they are a move away from traits, which I think is a good move. Though the Pathfinder core rulebook didn't have traits in it either, if I remember correctly, so only time will tell if they reintroduce traits or if they will just stick with themes as its replacement. Themes in Starfinder work in a similar fashion to backgrounds in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. They will give your character a single stat boost and then several abilities that are focused on non-combat situations and skill checks. And I'm thrilled with this new mechanic, though I really wish Paizo had disconnected the stat bonus from the theme. Maybe one day we'll get a D20 role-playing game that completely separates combat and non-combat stats and abilities, but that's a topic for another day. There are currently 10 themes to choose from: Ace Pilot, Bounty Hunter, Icon, Mercenary, Outlaw, Priest, Scholar, Spacefarer, Xenoseeker, and then Themeless. Unlike 5e backgrounds, these themes do not list any additional characteristics that your character might have, and for the most part are just purely mechanical. Another seemingly small but pretty neat little update is how Starfinder handles carrying capacity. Carrying capacity and encumbrance are now called bulk. You can carry as much bulk as half of your strength score before you become encumbered. So if you have a strength of 10, you can carry 5 bulk. Pretty simple. Every item in the game has a bulk column, which has replaced weight. If the item has a number, you guessed it, that's how much bulk it takes. For example, a Zenith laser rifle is 1 bulk. If the item has an L to it, then it takes 10 L items to equal 1 bulk. Simply count up all the items in your inventory with an L next to them. Every 10 is a bulk, regardless of what item they are. And finally, if the item has a dash, then the weight is negligible, like rings, for instance. With the replacement of gold with credit sticks, this should make tracking how much a player is carrying much, much easier, which I think has some good implications for the game. One, without pockets full of gold and a really simple system to use, players will appreciate how easy it is to track. And 2, game masters no longer have to hand out bags of holding or ignore carrying capacity altogether just to keep their game moving. So simple, great. I absolutely love this system. Skills will feel very familiar to you if you have ever played Pathfinder or Dungeons & Dragons before, as the 3.5/Pathfinder set of skills sticks around here for Starfinder. Depending on your class plus your intelligence modifier, you'll receive a number of skill ranks to spend on class skills and non-class skills. And at every level, you get another wave of skills to spend. Additionally, each class has a list of which skills are considered class skills, and if you spend at least 1 rank in a class skill, it gets an additional +3 bonus to it. I personally am really happy to see the Pathfinder skill system return. As much as I appreciate 5e's simplicity, and it is a great system, I like the ability to diversify my character and to have them continue to improve their skills as they level and grow older in a campaign world. It just makes sense to me. Also, much like the streamlining from 3.5 to Pathfinder, Paizo reduced and simplified their skill system further with Starfinder from 35 skills in Pathfinder to just 20 in Starfinder. The biggest condensing of which was the replacement of the gambit of knowledge checks with the new skill culture. Okay, so now the other biggest thing that I am really excited to see is the streamlining of feats. Oh man, was this needed. Just to give you guys an idea, the Starfinder core rulebook cut 15% of the pages dedicated to their feat section from the Pathfinder core rulebook, and it may not sound like a lot, but it's definitely noticeable. Feat trees still exist, and a lot of feats have made the jump verbatim, like mobility, whereas others have made the jump but with some subtle changes like toughness, which now grants you +1 stamina per level and has some added benefits when breathing in heavy smoke or being in a thin atmosphere. Also, one of the simplest changes that help clean up the tangled mess of planning out your feats is that all classes get weapon specialization at level 3, which applies to all weapon categories that you are proficient with. What a greatly needed and very welcome update. The biggest thing that stands out to me about the Starfinder role-playing game is options. There are so many different ways that you can build your character to make it feel unique and different from other characters that you'll encounter. In addition to feats, you can multi-class, take archetypes, and even have your character go through surgeries to give them mechanical augments like a breath weapon, a mechanical arm, or even eyes that can see in the dark. There are a lot more little nuances that I think separates Starfinder from Pathfinder, and obviously as a 530-page book, I won't be able to cover it all here. So if you're coming over from Pathfinder, you'll probably find the game very familiar, yet at the same time, you might feel frustrated when making assumptions about the game, some little things here and there that work just a little differently from Pathfinder. But overall, you'll probably find skills and feats very familiar, though updated in a surprisingly pleasant way. Once you get used to the new resolve and stamina mechanics, you'll feel right at home very quickly while you're off exploring new planets and engaging in exciting starship battles. If you're making a jump from 5e, Starfinder is going to feel a lot more crunchy. Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is a very simple game, and by contrast, Starfinder is going to feel like there are a lot more rules for you to keep up with. But on the flip side of that coin is a tremendous amount of customization and options to building that one-of-a-kind character that is simply not possible with 5e. If you've been playing D&D 5th edition for a few years and feel like there isn't much difference from one barbarian to the next, you'll definitely find a lot more range of characters in Starfinder, at least on the combat side. So ultimately, I think Starfinder falls right in that spot of a crunchy system that rewards players for tactical thinking in combat while giving them a lot of options, but it can be a bit heavy on rules for players who want a very, very light system. Though I gotta say, I am very, very pleased and very impressed with just how much Paizo removed and cleaned up from the jump to Pathfinder. The more I dig into Starfinder, the more I think that it is just a very well-designed, tightly designed game system. So what do you guys think? Do you agree in my assessment that Starfinder provides more depth than 5e? Do you like the new resolve and stamina systems? What about bulk? I'd love to hear what you guys think about the game features that were reduced, like feats, versus some of the things that stayed, like the skill system. Also, guys, be sure to check out the video's description for a full guide to all the coverage here for Starfinder on the channel. I just released 14 videos for Starfinder Week covering each class and each race, so be sure to check those out. And I'll be releasing more Starfinder videos over the next few weeks. So if you're looking for a place to keep up with everything Starfinder, I've got you covered. If this is your first time here and you love role-playing games as much as I do, I'd love to have you subscribe. Every week I'll be putting out new videos on GM tips, player tips, tutorials, and more, so if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, just hit that subscribe button down below and come join us. Once again, I want to give a special thank you to my sponsor, Miniature Market, for making all of these videos possible, and thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Cody, and may your games be filled with awesome memories and even better friends. I'll catch you guys next time.